Hey everyone, it's an aging zombie here. I've been playing the Black Ops 6 beta for the past few days ever since it came out, and it's given me some time to kind of think about how I feel about the game, what I think of the beta so far, and what I think then potentially for the release of the game, how this game is going to play out. So I just wanted to make a video on my thoughts of the beta so far. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about would probably be the biggest thing, like the new thing for this game, is the Omnimovement system. And after a few days of playing with it, I think it is a wonderful addition, and I'm actually really happy with how they've implemented it. Now, I do think the system is fairly intuitive, but there is a small learning curve to it. Like, it does take a couple of matches to just kind of be like, oh, well, how do I actually use this system? How can I use it effectively in combat? And one thing I do recommend is there's like a tutorial that you can go through at the very beginning when you first boot up the game. I recommend going through it because, one, it helps you, well, what are all the key bindings for it, and I was able to then refine how I have my setup. But it also does just give you a brief overview of what to do, so that when you get into the multiplayer matches, it's not as foreign. But then after a couple matches, like I said, you kind of just learn, oh, okay, this is how I can do this, and oh, this person dove around the corner, that was cool, I'm gonna try it. And then you try it, and the combat just feels so much more fun, and it's just this like cool little elevation to how the movement goes. Now, one thing I've kind of noticed online, other content creators talk about, I've seen some Reddit posts talk about it, but with the Omnimovement system and the whole controller versus mouse and keyboard, there seems to be this kind of general sense or thought that mouse and keyboard players are going to have a really hard time against controller players because of aim assist. Now, personally, for me, as a mouse and keyboard player, I haven't really felt that so far in the beta. Yes, there are some people that are better at the Omnimovement system than I am. They slide and dive better, and you can kind of tell that they've got aim assist, and so they're tracking me a little better. But overall, I haven't felt hindered or at a huge disadvantage because of that. And likewise, I also haven't really had trouble tracking. You know, if someone all of a sudden dives out in front of my screen from around a corner, sure, there are sometimes if I just have a bit of a slow reaction to it, I might not track it as well, but if I have a quick enough reaction, or maybe their aim was a little off, I can recover and win out in a lot of these fights. So I'm personally fine with the state of everything right now. Another new movement mechanic being the Supine Prone is a really good addition. And again, just like Omnimovement, took me a couple games to kind of really fully appreciate and use, because I have it so programmed in my brain that if I'm prone and I know an enemy is flanking me, instead of trying to rotate on the ground because you kind of had to, it was like a shuffle animation, and then sometimes your feet would get stuck on an object preventing you from turning. It was just kind of rote for me to go to crouch, go to stance, something like that, get out of prone, turn and face the enemy. Now you don't have to worry about that. Your character just rolls over on their back, and it's just such a fluid system, and it works well. There's no hiccups in it, and you're able to engage someone that's outflanking you. Next thing I wanted to just kind of quickly talk about is the maps that they have here. So the maps that they have in the beta, I think are all really good. I think they look good, they play very well. There's definitely like kind of some like power positions or areas that people like to go to, but it's also fairly different from game to game. You know, for any given map, in one area of that map, maybe it's kind of a hot spot and everyone runs to, but then that same map a couple matches later with a different lobby of people, it's a different area of the map that everyone's kind of going to. So there's never really just one spot that every single time you play that map you're going to want to go to. It's going to kind of change, and it's just going to be dependent on the players in that match and just kind of how it's going, which I think is really good. So I'm actually really happy with the maps so far. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is weapons, and this one's going to be a little bit more challenging from the beta side of things, just because currently there is one weapon that just kind of seems to reign supreme, and that is the Jackal SMG. Now, I would think that based off the beta, I'm sure Treyarch is kind of gathering a bunch of data, and come launch, I'm sure the Jackal will catch some type of nerf. And for this video, I have been trying to use other weapons outside of the Jackal to kind of give my thoughts, and I do think all the other weapons feel really good. And in fact, using other weapons, you can be effective against the Jackal in the beta's current state. It's just a bit more of a struggle than if you just, decided to only use the Jackal. And I do want to be clear, I'm not faulting anyone for using the Jackal and only using the Jackal in the beta. By all means, you do you. None of this really matters, right? Nothing in the beta carries forward, so it's not like any of the weapon levels that we've worked on are going to transfer into the game when it comes out. So absolutely go ahead, use the Jackal, have fun, have a blast, dominating every lobby. The next thing I want to talk about is score streaks in the game. Now, we do have a smaller subset of the score streaks available in the beta than we will have at launch, but the ones that we have access to, I think they all work really well, they feel well. I think the value that they have for each of them is pretty good. It's not too high, not too low. There's a perk that will reduce the cost of the non-lethals, which I think is a really cool perk to use, especially if you like using all those support streaks. And one thing I'm glad with this score streak system is they've gone away from the Cold War style, where on death your score streak did not reset. So it will reset in this game, which I think is good. I prefer a system like that so that you aren't guaranteed higher end streaks. You really do have to actually work towards it to get those. And I know it's going to be a bummer for some people. Yes, currently it is only score streaks. There is no option to toggle into kill streaks, which I think was a really good addition we've had in the past few games of giving the player that choice. So I'm a little bummed out that for this game, they didn't give that option as well. But I guess for me personally, I am an objective player, so I like having the score streaks. I always toggle it onto the score streak side, so yay for me, I guess. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the design decision to go with eliminations versus kills on the scoreboard. Now, for those that maybe didn't know, there was a difference between the two. So a kill is when you are the last person to do damage to the enemy. You will get the kill for it. Your name will pop up in that kill feed on the scoreboard. If it shows kills, you will get +1 on your kill count. On the other side, an elimination is just you did damage to that person before they died, so you get +1 on your scoreboard when the scoreboard shows eliminations versus kills. Now, to me, eliminations just give this false sense of how well you do. So at the end of a match, if I look at the scoreboard, and maybe I knew I was having a bad match, but I look and I see I went 18 eliminations and 25 deaths. I might think, well, oh, okay, maybe I actually didn't do that bad, but in reality, maybe I only got actually like 5 kills. So maybe I actually really went like 5 and 25. And I personally like seeing like, wow, I did really bad. What can I do to improve? Versus I went 18 and 25. It just doesn't feel as good when you just get eliminations. Now, I think the only really good argument in favor of eliminations are the instances where maybe you get into an engagement, you hit that enemy like 4 times, but a teammate comes around the corner, gets that final 5th shot, and they get the credit, right? I believe the credit should go to whoever did the most damage. And in fact, in this game, if you look, when you die, it tells you who all hit you, how many times, and for what damage. So the game already knows who did the most damage. I think it should just reward the kill to that person. So regardless of who put the last shot into the person, it's who did the most damage. They get the kill, put it on the scoreboard, and just call it a day. And with that, I'm going to wrap this video up. Those are really kind of the main things that I wanted to talk about. Overall, I'm really enjoying this beta. I think the game is pretty good in its state outside of the Jackal. I'm very excited for the release of the full game. Start working on unlocking all the weapons, all the attachments, all the camos. I'm excited to prestige again. And I'm also super excited for zombies and start working on all the Easter eggs. I hope everyone enjoyed this video, and until the next one, peace.